Up in the quiet parts of New York, Mallory Kinane, who works undercover for a private government-linked outfit, strolls into a little diner. She slides into a booth tucked in the back, trying to keep to herself. Not long after, a car screeches to a stop outside, and in comes Aaron, another field agent she's worked with before. He drops in his seat across from her, clearly a little tipsy, and wastes no time. He tells her he's got new orders, and she needs to come with him right away. She shakes her head and flat out refuses. She's had enough of being yanked around without explanations. Aaron, however, is drunk and edgy, not interested in a debate. Without warning, he lunges at her. The other diners gasp as the fight breaks out. Chair scrape, cup spill. A couple of people try to peel him off her, and in the struggle, Mallory manages to flip things around. Within seconds, she's got him down and beaten, making it clear who's the better trained of the two. With Aaron no longer a threat, she scoops up her bag, points at a stunned customer named Scott, and orders him a hand over his car keys. He doesn't argue. She drags him along, and the two speed away from the diner in his car. As she drives, blood trickles from a cut on her arm. She tells Scott to help patch her up, and he does so without question, fumbling with napkins and tape. Curious, he asks if Aaron was her boyfriend. She laughs bitterly, says no, and adds that she works for a private contractor tied to government operations. Scott's impressed, though he can't hide how out of his depth he feels. A week earlier in Washington, D.C., her boss, Kenneth, head of the firm she works for, is sitting across from CIA agent Sins and their European contact, Rodrigo. The discussion is serious. There's a journalist hostage in Barcelona who needs to be rescued. After payment details are hammered out, Sins pushes for Mallory to be assigned. Kenneth resists, saying she isn't necessary for this job, but Sins insists. He knows she's the best they've got, and he wants her on the ground. Not long after, Mallory lands in Barcelona and links up with Rodrigo. He casually asks about her history with Kenneth, clearly fishing for personal details, but she brushes it off, saying it's always been strictly professional. Aaron shows up soon after, and together they wait for the last two operatives, Victor and Jimia. When everyone's present, they gather to review the mission. Their target is the hostage, a reporter named Jang. Surveillance begins immediately. The team tracks their main suspect, hoping to locate where Jang is being held. As plans shape up, Aaron voices his doubts. He argues that the mission is too thinly staffed, that they need more people to cover all angles. But Mallory and the rest are confident they can handle it as is. The next day, they move into action. They wait until the suspect leaves the building, then storm the place, guns drawn. They blow through the door, grab Jang, and hurry out. But luck turns. Before they can disappear, the suspect comes back and opens fire. The street explodes in chaos as bullets fly. Mallory takes off after the shooter, chasing him across blocks, weaving through alleyways until he ducks into another building. She finally manages to catch him, slamming him down and making sure he won't cause trouble again. With the suspect subdued, she and Aaron hand Jang over to Rodrigo's men. Mission complete. Afterward, Aaron questions her. Why risk chasing the shooter when they already had Jang safe? She tells him flatly, she hates leaving loose ends. He presses further, asking if she ever relaxes, if she'll ever truly step away from this life. She reveals she already left Kenneth 6 months ago. He corrects her, saying he meant the company, and she smirks. She actually walked out of it just an hour earlier. He doesn't like the sound of that. Their conversation turns heated and then passionate. They end up making out. Back in the U.S., Mallory is at her home when she receives a package, a freshly printed copy of a memoir written by her father, John, a former soldier. Before she can really flip through it, she hears someone at the door. Hand on her gun, she opens it, only to find Kenneth standing there. He says he's been calling her nonstop, but she's been ignoring him. She insists she needs downtime. 3 missions in 2 weeks has drained her. Kenneth smirks, saying she wouldn't know what to do with a break anyway. He then brings up another assignment. She tries to push back, but he tells her this one is different. MI6 themselves asked for her. One of his agents, Paul, has gotten close to a French national named Stutter, who's living in Ireland. They need her to pose as Paul's wife for the mission. Supposedly, it'll be quick and simple. 2 days tops. So, Mallory boards a plane and lands in Dublin, meeting Paul at the airport. They immediately start their cover as husband and wife. At the hotel, they unpack gear, cash, guns, surveillance tools, everything they'll need. When Paul heads into the shower, Mallory puts on gloves, hacks into his phone, and installs a tracker. She moves fast, cleaning up before he returns. Later, when she's in the bathroom, Paul snoops through her bag and finds her brooch. Both are already testing each other. That evening, they get dressed for a high society party at a private estate. Leaving weapons behind, they're chauffeured into a world of fine wine and fake smiles. Paul notices she's uncomfortable. It's not her scene. Combat is her element, not cocktail chatter. While mingling, Mallory catches a man staring a little too long, as if he recognizes her. Not long after, Stutter himself appears. He chats with them and casually mentions taking an overseas trip the next day, even inviting the couple to join him at his expense. Suspicious, Paul excuses himself to speak privately with Stutter. Mallory checks his tracker and sees his signal moving away from the party. She sneaks toward a window and spots Paul and Stutter deep in conversation. They talk about some plans scheduled for Saturday. After Stutter leaves, Paul heads alone toward a barn. Mallory slips over, only to run into Stutter again, who calls Paul by another name, Richard. Pretending to be tipsy, she excuses herself and goes inside the barn. What she finds shocks her. Jang's corpse, her own brooch clutched in his hand. Paul calls her phone, asking where she is. She lies, saying she's in the bathroom. He insists they leave immediately. Back at the hotel, the tension finally erupts. The moment they step in, Paul attacks. But Mallory is no rookie. She counters hard, sending him crashing through glass, choking him out, and finally finishing him with a gun muffled by a pillow. Exhausted, she sits for a moment, then dumps his body in the bathtub. She rifles through his phone, redials a missed number, and Kenneth's voice answers. He makes a cryptic remark about divorce being final, then goes silent, realizing it's probably her. Mallory hangs up and calls her father, saying she needs to come home for a while. He warns her to be careful. Outside, things spiral fast. She notices a man shadowing her across the street. A car creeps past too slowly. Instinct kicks in. She suddenly darts across traffic, runs into a parking garage, leaves her phone on a random car to throw off tracking, then bolts out another exit. Men in pursuit fan out behind her. She cuts through a fast food joint, spins around corners, then hails a cab just as more hunters flood the street. Thinking she's shaken them, she heads into a store. But inside her bag, she finds a tracker. Sirens wail nearby. She bolts out the door just as police roll up. Fleeing again, she ducks into a hotel. Tactical cops swarm the building within minutes. She races up the stairs, fights her way to the roof, and leaps across rooftops to escape. It's rough going. She falls at one point, limps away bruised, but keeps moving. She swipes a hoodie from a car, blending into the crowd, then grabs another cab that takes her to the port. There, she calls Rodrigo. He's stunned to hear her voice. She demands to know if it was him or Kenneth who sold her out. Instead of answering, he hangs up. Mallory sneaks into the docks under cover of darkness, slipping aboard a ferry bound for safety. Meanwhile, Rodrigo immediately reports her call. Sins, the CIA agent, is informed. He tells Rodrigo to keep his family indoors until further notice. Then he has an operator pull Mallory's number from Rodrigo's phone records and dials her directly. Unlike Kenneth, Sins isn't trying to reel her in. He tells her he wants her to keep going after Kenneth, hinting that Kenneth isn't just running shady missions. He's part of a much bigger conspiracy, one controlled by someone still hiding in the shadows. Mallory wanted one thing, her name gone from the watch list. But goblins, the contact she leaned on, explained bluntly that doing so would mean giving up cooperation details straight to Kenneth. Still, he promised he'd try to push Kenneth into meeting her face-to-face. That way, both of them might finally get the answers they were chasing. Later, she confided in Scott, the unlucky guy now tagging along, telling him how Agent Sins had originally arranged to sit down with Kenneth at that diner. But instead of Kenneth, Aaron showed up and everything went sideways. Their trip down the highway soon turned ugly when they rolled up to a police roadblock. Mallory didn't hesitate, slammed the wheel hard, spun the car into a U-turn, and floored it. Sirens blared behind them as a cruiser gave chase. Snow lined the edges of the road, and she swerved onto a rough, icy trail. Scott was almost crying, wailing about his poor car as it bounced and jolted across the frozen ground. Another squad car tried cutting them off, but Mallory threw the car into reverse like she was born doing it, skidding away from one trap only to plow straight into another problem. The new track wasn't forgiving. They clipped a deer, spun out, and smashed nose first into a tree. Airbags popped. No way out this time. Hands up, they surrendered, letting the cops drag them into custody. While being transported, the officers got a strange transmission, new orders to deliver the prisoners to some address. They claimed federal agents were already on their way. Mallory's instinct screamed. She leaned forward, telling the cops in no uncertain terms that the people they were about to meet weren't real feds. She explained she was a government contractor on an active mission and begged them to double-check credentials. The cops just laughed, told her to shut up, and kept driving. At the drop-off point, she slid her cuffed hands forward, classic trick she'd practiced 100 times. That's when a black van screeched up. Muzzles flashed. The cops were cut down before they even realized the setup. Mallory dove for a fallen sidearm, returning fire with sharp, efficient bursts. She disabled the attacker's van and, without waiting, jumped back into the police cruiser with Scott. Her plan was simple. Split up soon, give him a number to call, and make sure at least one witness could vouch for everything that had just gone down. Elsewhere, Sins cornered Kenneth in a parking lot. He pressed Kenneth to talk with Mallory's father, John, painting her as a fugitive. Maybe, Sins suggested, the father could be the leverage needed to bring her in. Meanwhile, Mallory herself reached John first. She explained that imposters posing as federal agents would be visiting and warned him what to expect. She even coached him on how to rattle Aaron if it came to that. John thought running was smarter. Just disappear, vanish off the map. But Mallory shook her head. She was done running. Not long after, Kenneth, Aaron, and several more agents stormed John's house. Kenneth confronted the old soldier directly, laying out accusations. Mallory had killed multiple men, and now she was a danger to the public. He asked John if Mallory had ever mentioned his name. John denied it flatly. Kenneth pressed harder, demanding help in hunting her down. All the while, Mallory crouched in the shadows nearby, listening to every word. John kept his answers cool, lying smoothly that his daughter had called him maybe 10 days earlier, only to say she was heading to Barcelona. Nothing more. Kenneth then revealed a heavy piece of information. Jang, the hostage Mallory had rescued, was in fact working for British intelligence. John didn't buy the spin. He suggested something in Barcelona had set this chain of events off. Every time the city's name was mentioned, Aaron's body language betrayed unease. At that exact moment, Mallory called in. Aaron, quick on his feet, immediately began tracing the signal. Before John could even say hello, she demanded to speak directly with Kenneth. Her voice was sharp, unforgiving. She wanted the truth, all of it, or in 10 minutes, she'd have her hands wrapped around his throat. Kenneth tried the guilt card, demanding she surrender for her father's sake. She cut him off. Time's up. Aaron confirmed the trace. She wasn't somewhere far away. She was inside the house. He asked Kenneth what had actually happened in Barcelona, but before more words could be exchanged, the lights snapped off. Total darkness. Aaron ordered the men to lock down the house. John muttered that if they were really federal, backup should already be swarming in. Gunfire cracked. Aaron investigated and discovered one of his men dead in the garage. He heard movement and sent another agent to check it out. Returning to Kenneth, he pulled up the photo of Jang's corpse, still holding Mallory's brooch. Aaron didn't believe for a second that she was the killer. He pushed Kenneth hard for answers, hinting that he knew Kenneth himself was setting her up. Realizing he'd been exposed, Kenneth shot Aaron in the stomach, cold and quick. Then he turned his weapon toward John, warning him not to make a move that would give him reason to kill again. Elsewhere in the house, the agent searching for Mallory heard something. Too late, she pounced. A brutal fight broke out in the dark. She managed to overpower and kill him, then raced outside, hoping to catch Kenneth. But he was gone. Back inside, she found Aaron bleeding out, barely clinging to life. He admitted he felt stupid, guilty for not catching on earlier. He tried focusing on his breathing, whispering that he was losing the fight. Moments later, he slipped away. Mallory froze in grief, and John pulled her into an embrace, apologizing for the mess. Days passed. At a quiet airport hangar, Mallory met Sins again. He came clean. Kenneth had been his employee, but he hadn't known the full scope of Kenneth's shady dealings. Setting Kenneth up at her father's house had been Sins' idea, hoping she'd take him out. Instead, Kenneth slipped away. Still, Sins offered her a deal. He'd wipe her slate clean, even replace Scott's destroyed car. In return, she should think about joining the CIA officially, especially if she intended to keep chasing Kenneth. According to Sins, Kenneth had likely crossed into Mexico. She promised to consider the offer, but her mind was already set. She'd go after Kenneth no matter what. Kenneth, meanwhile, was holed up in a shabby hotel, paranoid and desperate. He dialed Stutter for help, but Stutter refused to answer his calls. The next morning, Kenneth armed himself and walked along a beach, trying to plan. But Mallory was already there. She rushed him, tackling him hard into the sand. The two fought violently, trading blows, neither holding back. Kenneth tried to break free, but she dragged him back toward the shoreline. His leg got caught between rocks, pinning him. The tide was creeping in, waves already crashing closer. She demanded answers, her voice cutting through the roar of the sea. Finally, he spilled it. Jang wasn't just a hostage. He'd been digging too deep into Stutter's connections with trafficking networks. When Mallory chose to walk away from Kenneth's company, taking all her intelligence files with her, Kenneth and Rodrigo saw an opportunity. They'd trick Mallory into pulling Jang from his safe house. Then Rodrigo would hand him to Stutter for elimination. Kenneth passed instructions to Paul, frame Mallory for Jang's death, and then finish her at the hotel, claiming self-defense. Hearing the truth, she turned her back on him. The water kept rising, waves crashing higher, and she left him trapped, legs stuck, staring at his fate as the tide crept in. Across the sea in Spain, Rodrigo was living lavishly at his villa, drinking wine and enjoying his riches. His girlfriend answered the door one lazy afternoon, but didn't return. Rodrigo eventually went to check, only to find himself face-to-face with Mallory. She'd come for him too. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.